No one heard the dragon fall. Commander Elias Ward would remember that detail for the rest of his life. Not the impact, not the dust, not even the way the sky seemed to dim for a heartbeat. But the silence. It came down from the clouds like a dying star, a massive shadow tearing through the gray sky above the ridge. Elias saw it first, a flicker of motion too large, too wrong to be anything natural. His instincts screamed dragon before his mind could catch up. Contact! Someone shouted behind him. Too late. The creature hit the earth beyond the jagged ridge line with enough force to shake the ground beneath their boots. Stones rattled. Loose gravel skittered downhill. A deep, rolling tremor passed through the valley like distant thunder. Every soldier dropped into position instantly, rifles snapping up, hearts pounding. And then they waited. Elias held his breath. 3 seconds. 5. 10. Nothing. No roar followed. No explosion of fire. No shockwave of heat rolling over the ridge to melt skin and steel alike. No deafening cry that would split the sky and freeze blood in their veins. Just silence. A cold, unnatural silence that pressed against the ears until it felt louder than any scream. "Sir," Novak's voice cracked beside him, barely above a whisper. Did you hear that?" Elias didn't look at him. His eyes stayed locked on the ridge. "I heard it hit," Elias said. "No," Novak swallowed hard. "That's just it. I didn't hear anything else." Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. "Neither did I." Every human child knew the stories. Dragons didn't just fall out of the sky. They announced themselves. Their voices were storms, roars that shook mountains, screams that burned cities before the flames even touched them. You didn't miss a dragon. You survived it, or you didn't. But this one had fallen like a corpse. "Hold formation," Elias ordered quietly. "No one advances until I say." The squad shifted nervously, boots scraping against loose stone. 12 soldiers, all trained, all hardened, and yet every one of them stood just a little too still, like prey pretending it hadn't been noticed. The wind picked up, dragging dust across the ridge. For a moment, Elias thought he saw something, movement, maybe, or the outline of something massive beyond the crest. Then it was gone. "You think it's dead?" someone muttered. Elias didn't answer. Because if it was dead, why did everything feel worse? He had fought in war zones, seen cities reduced to ash, watched men break under pressure that would crush most people. He knew fear. He knew the shape of it. This wasn't fear. This was wrong. "Sir," Novak said again, quieter now, "dragons don't go quiet." Elias finally turned his head, just enough to glance at him. Novak's face had gone pale beneath the dust, eyes fixed on the ridge like it might suddenly rise up and devour them. "I know," Elias said. And that was the problem. Another few seconds passed. Still nothing. No movement. No sound. No sign of life beyond the faint echo of that distant impact. Elias exhaled slowly, making a decision. "We move," he said. A ripple of tension ran through the squad. Slow. Weapons ready. Eyes up. No one argued. They advanced toward the ridge in a tight formation, each step deliberate, controlled. The crunch of boots against gravel sounded too loud in the silence, like they were announcing themselves to something waiting just out of sight. Elias reached the base of the incline first. Up close, the ridge looked sharper, more jagged, like the bones of the earth had been forced upward in pain. Dust still drifted down from the impact, thin streams of debris sliding toward their feet. Fresh. Whatever had fallen, it had hit hard. Elias raised a fist. The squad stopped. He listened. Nothing. No breathing. No shifting weight. No low rumble of a creature gathering strength for a final strike. Just wind. Just silence. Slowly, carefully, Elias climbed. Each step brought him closer to the unknown, his pulse steady but heavy in his chest. His mind ran through possibilities, ambush, trap, wounded predator waiting for prey to come close. But none of it fit. Because no matter the scenario, one thing should have been certain. A dragon would make itself known. Elias reached the top of the ridge. For a split second, he saw nothing but the valley beyond, scarred earth, torn stone, a long trench carved violently through the ground. Then his eyes adjusted. And he saw it. The dragon. It lay stretched across the valley floor like a fallen mountain, its massive body half buried in dust and shattered rock. Wings twisted. Scales dulled. Motionless. Too still. Elias felt his chest tighten. Because even from this distance, he could tell something was wrong. Not just with the way it had fallen. Not just with the silence. but with the dragon itself. And as the wind shifted, carrying the faintest trace of something unfamiliar across the ridge, a single thought settled heavily into his mind. This wasn't how dragons were supposed to be. And whatever had brought it down might still be out there. They waited until dusk before they moved. The sky had turned the color of bruised steel, heavy clouds dragging the last light down into the valley. Shadows stretched long across the broken ground, swallowing detail and turning distance into uncertainty. It was the kind of light that made everything feel half real, like the world itself wasn't sure what it was looking at. Commander Elias Ward didn't like it. Neither did his squad. But waiting longer wasn't an option. Not with something that large lying motionless in the open. Not with silence where there should have been destruction. Thermals? Elias asked quietly. Private Novak checked his scanner again, frowning. Still inconsistent. I'm getting baseline heat readings only. Nothing elevated. Nothing even close to dragon class. That makes no sense, another soldier muttered. Elias didn't answer. He was already moving. They descended the ridge in a tight formation, boots careful against loose stone. Every step felt like it was being recorded by something unseen. The valley below seemed wider now, deeper, like it had grown overnight to swallow them whole. The dragon lay where it had fallen. Up close, the scale of it was almost incomprehensible. Its body stretched longer than a convoy of armored vehicles, each scale the size of a shield, layered like ancient armor forged by a forgotten civilization. But none of it gleamed. None of it burned with the faint inner light the old war records described. Instead, it looked drained. Like the life had been poured out of it and forgotten. Elias raised a hand. Hold position. The squad stopped immediately, forming a half circle at his back. Weapons up. Fingers tense on triggers. No one spoke. He stepped forward alone. Each movement brought new details into focus. Cracks in the scales. Scorch marks that didn't behave like fire damage. Deep gouges in the ground around the body, as if something had forced it down rather than letting it fall. This wasn't a crash. It was a collapse. Elias reached the edge of the dragon's forelimb. Even now, even like this, it was terrifying in scale. The claw alone was longer than his body, half buried in fractured stone. He could see veins beneath translucent scale plates, faint and dark, like rivers frozen mid-flow. Sir, Novak's voice came through the comms, tight with unease. Something's wrong with the readings. It's not registering as dead, but it's not registering as alive either. Elias frowned. Explain. I can't. It's like, the system doesn't know what it is. That shouldn't have been possible. Elias took another step forward. The air felt heavier here. Not physically, but perceptibly, like pressure building behind the eyes. The kind of feeling you got before a storm broke, except there was no wind. No clouds moving fast enough to explain it. Just wait. He stopped near the dragon's chest. It rose slightly. Elias froze. Then it fell again. A slow, shallow motion. Breathing. Contact, someone hissed behind him instantly. Wait, Elias snapped. The chest rose again. Lower this time. Strained. Like every breath cost something. The dragon wasn't dead. But it wasn't alive in any normal sense either. Elias slowly lowered his rifle, though every instinct screamed against it. It's breathing, he said quietly. That's not breathing, Novak replied immediately. That's malfunctioning biology. The phrase sounded wrong even as it left his mouth. Elias stepped closer to the head. The dragon's face was partially buried in debris, one eye visible beneath cracked stone and broken scale plating. It was open. Watching. Elias stopped. The eye didn't glow like fire or rage. It didn't burn with ancient intelligence or fury. It looked exhausted. Wounded. Afraid. For a long moment, neither moved. Elias felt something shift in his chest, an instinct that didn't belong in a soldier standing over a supposed apex predator. This wasn't confrontation. It wasn't dominance. It wasn't even survival. It was recognition. Can it see us? Novak whispered. Elias didn't take his eyes off it. Yes. The dragon's chest rose again, deeper this time. The motion strained, uneven, like something inside it was struggling to keep rhythm. Elias took a cautious step forward. The dragon didn't react with violence. Didn't roar. Didn't strike. Instead, its eye followed him. Tracking. Waiting. Like it didn't know what he was, only that he was there. Scan update, Novak said suddenly. Sir. I'm picking up irregular biosignatures. Multiple. Lad. It's like there's more than one metabolic system in there. Elias frowned. Meaning? I don't know. But dragons aren't supposed to be composite. The word hung in the air like a bad omen. Composite. As if the creature wasn't a single being, but something assembled. Elias moved closer still. The dragon's breath hitched. And then, a sound. Not a roar. Not even a growl. A broken, fractured exhale that carried weight but no force. Like something trying to remember how to make noise. The squad stiffened instantly. But Elias didn't step back. Because for the first time since they arrived, he realized something terrifying. The dragon wasn't dying. It was enduring. And whatever had brought it down hadn't finished the job. The silence broke first, not with violence, but with hesitation. A shallow, uneven breath slipped through the valley air like something torn from a damaged machine. It didn't belong in nature. It didn't belong in anything alive that the soldiers understood. And yet it came again. Strained. Fragile. Commander Elias Ward felt every muscle in his body tighten as the dragon's chest rose once more. This time, the motion wasn't just visible, it was deliberate. Controlled, like something inside the creature was forcing itself to continue. Sir, Novak's voice came through the comm, barely steady. It's still breathing. I can see that, Elias said quietly. But seeing it didn't make it make sense. Dragons didn't breathe like this. They were supposed to be catastrophic forces of nature, living infernos wrapped in scales, each inhale a buildup of destruction, each exhale a declaration of annihilation. This thing looked like it was struggling just to exist. Elias stepped closer. Each movement felt like crossing an invisible boundary. The air around the dragon was different, denser, heavier, as if reality itself was strained near its body. Dust drifted upward in slow spirals, not blown by wind but drawn into subtle currents around its chest. The dragon's eye tracked him again. Still open. Still aware. Still afraid. A soldier behind Elias shifted his footing. A sharp crack of gravel echoed too loudly. The dragon reacted. Its body tensed, just slightly. But the reaction wasn't aggression. It was fear. Hold positions, Elias ordered without turning around. No one moved. The dragon's chest rose again. Then stopped halfway. A tremor passed through its frame. For a split second, Elias thought it might collapse entirely. Instead, it spoke. The sound was not what anyone expected. It wasn't a roar carved from thunder. It wasn't the deep, ancient language of beasts that humans had imagined for centuries. It was broken. Fractured. Like stone grinding against metal that no longer fit together. Help. The word barely existed. It didn't carry power. It carried pain. Every soldier froze instantly. Novak actually stepped back, nearly dropping his scanner. No. That's not possible. Dragons don't speak. Elias finished quietly. The dragon's eye shifted slightly toward Novak. As if it had heard him. As if it understood. Another breath came, shallower now. Strained. Hurt. The second word was weaker than the first. Less formed. More like memory than language. Elias felt something twist in his chest, an instinct he couldn't immediately name. Not fear. Not quite sympathy either. Something more primitive. Recognition of suffering where there should have been none. He lowered his rifle slightly. Are you saying it's conscious? One of the soldiers whispered behind him. No, Novak said quickly. That's not consciousness. That's malfunction. Some kind of neurological echo. It has to be. But even as he said it, his voice lacked conviction. The dragon's chest rose again. Stopped. Struggled. Then forced itself upward. And this time, the sound that came out wasn't a word. It was a whimper. A deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the ground itself, carrying weight that made the soldiers feel it in their bones. It was massive in scale, yet utterly broken in intent. A creature too large to cry properly. Trying anyway. Elias took another step forward. Sir, Novak warned sharply. If it's injured and reactive. It's not reacting, Elias said quietly. He was close enough now to see details in the dragon's face. Fine fractures across its scales. Dullness in its eye that wasn't just injury, it was exhaustion. The kind that came from something that had been fighting for far too long without rest. The dragon's gaze stayed locked on him. It didn't flinch. Didn't attack. Just watched. Waiting. Elias stopped a few meters from its snout. The breath that washed over him was cold. Not warm like fire-blooded legends claimed. Cold. Why are you speaking? Elias asked, not even sure why he said it. Silence followed. Then, a slow, uneven inhale. And a broken answer. Not, dragon. The words came apart as they formed. The squad behind him stiffened again. Novak shook his head immediately. No. That's not, language doesn't degrade like that. It's not. The dragon's eye shifted toward him again. And Novak stopped talking. Elias felt it too now. Something was wrong with the assumption itself. Not just the dragon. Not just its condition. But everything they thought they knew. The dragon's chest rose again. This time, it didn't complete the breath. It stopped halfway and trembled violently, as if something inside it resisted even that small motion. Its body convulsed slightly, claws digging into fractured stone with enough force to crack it further. Elias instinctively stepped forward. Easy, he said quietly, though he wasn't sure who he was speaking to anymore. The dragon flinched. Not from pain. From expectation. As if it had been hurt every time someone came closer before. Elias froze. The realization settled in slowly. This wasn't a predator waiting for prey. This wasn't a wounded beast preparing to strike. This was something that had learned. Humans mean pain. The dragon's breath shuddered again. And for the first time since it fell from the sky, it tried to move away. The moment the dragon tried to move away, the entire valley changed. It wasn't dramatic at first. No explosion, no sudden surge of energy. Just a subtle shift, like reality itself tightened its grip around the massive creature and refused to let it leave. Its fallen dragged against broken stone. Slow. Heavy. Not the movement of something choosing to retreat, but of something that had forgotten how to stand without pain. Commander Elias Ward took an instinctive step forward. Don't, Novak warned immediately behind him. Sir, if it's unstable. It's not unstable, Elias said quietly. He didn't take his eyes off the dragon. It's afraid. That word landed wrong in the silence. Afraid. No one in the squad responded. They were trained for combat, for anomalies, for hostile encounters with apex predators. Fear was something they understood in themselves and their enemies, but not in something like this. The dragon's body shifted again. A deeper tremor ran through it this time. Its massive frame sagged as if the effort of movement was draining it faster than it could recover. Dust fell from its scales in slow cascades. Then it spoke again. No, more. The words were weaker than before. Fragmented. Like they were being pulled from a place that was already breaking apart. Elias moved closer anyway. Who did this? He asked. Novak snapped immediately. Sir, you're interrogating it? It's not. Elias raised a hand without looking back. Silence. The dragon's eye followed him again. Slower now. Tired. It didn't answer immediately. Instead, its chest rose in a shallow, uneven motion. Then fell. Then struggled again. Elias realized something critical in that moment. It wasn't just breathing. It was fighting to breathe. Hunters, the dragon finally rasped. The word carried weight, but not aggression. Not hatred. Recognition. Elias frowned. Hunters? The dragon's eye flicked slightly toward the sky. Then back to him. Come, take, voice. A ripple of unease moved through the squad behind Elias. Novak shook his head again, more urgently this time. This doesn't match any known classification. Dragons don't communicate concepts like voice. They don't. Stop, Elias said sharply. Novak fell silent. Elias stepped closer to the dragon's head. Now he could see more clearly into its eye. Not just color, not just reflection, but something deeper. Patterns beneath the surface. Subtle distortions, like something laid under the biology itself. Not natural. Not simple. The dragon's breathing became more erratic again. Silence us, it added, barely audible. Elias felt the words settle in his mind, refusing to leave. Silence us. Not kill. Not burn. Not destroy. Silence. He looked at the wounds again. The strange fractures. The unnatural scorch patterns that didn't behave like fire damage. The way the creature's body seemed interrupted, as if something inside it had been forcibly disrupted rather than merely injured. A thought began forming in his mind that he didn't want to complete. Sir, Novak said more cautiously now, if it's saying what it sounds like it's saying, then it's describing intent. Purposeful targeting of a communication system. Elias didn't respond. Because he was already looking at the dragon differently. Not as a beast. Not as a weapon. But as something with structure. Something that could be disabled. The dragon shifted again, trying once more to pull its body backward. But its movement was uneven, broken. One wing dragged uselessly, half collapsed. The other trembled under its own weight. It wasn't retreating successfully. It was collapsing into itself. Elias raised a hand slightly, signaling the squad to stay back. Then he spoke carefully. "Are you saying you were attacked because you can communicate?" The dragon hesitated. Then, a single, fractured motion of its head. "Yes." The squad reacted instantly. Weapons tightened. One soldier swore under his breath. Novak looked like he was trying to reconcile data that refused to align. "That's not possible," Novak said again, but now it sounded hollow. "That would imply intent to suppress communication in a biological apex predator. That's..." "Stop trying to fit it into known categories," Elias said quietly. He stepped closer. Now close enough to see the fine tremors running through the dragon's body. Not just injury responses, but systemic instability, like something essential inside it was failing in cycles. The dragon flinched slightly as he approached. But didn't strike. Didn't defend. Just endured. "Who are the hunters?" Elias asked again. The dragon's eye tightened slightly. A long pause. Then, barely audible. "Your kind?" The words didn't feel like accusation. They felt like memory. Elias went still. Behind him, Novak stiffened. "That's impossible," Novak whispered. "We've never had operational contact with anything classified as..." "Then what is it?" Elias interrupted quietly. No answer came. Only silence. The dragon's breathing slowed further. Each rise of its chest now looked more like effort than function. Like the act of remaining alive was something being enforced rather than sustained. Elias looked at the massive creature again. At the fear. At the exhaustion. At the way it no longer looked like a predator at all. And for the first time since humanity learned the word dragon, he began to wonder if they had been wrong about everything. The sky changed before the sound arrived. It always did. Commander Elias Ward noticed it first, the way the clouds above the valley began to distort, not drifting naturally but pulling inward, as if something unseen had grabbed the atmosphere itself and started tightening its grip. The dragon noticed too. Its body reacted before its mind seemed to catch up. A sudden tremor ran through its massive frame. The shallow rhythm of its breathing broke completely, replaced by a sharp, unstable inhale that sounded more like panic than biology. "No," it rasped. The word was weaker than before. More fractured. More certain. Novak stepped closer behind Elias, eyes locked on the sky. "Sir. I'm getting energy spikes. High altitude. Multiple signatures." Elias didn't look away from the horizon. "Defined signatures." Novak swallowed. "Not natural. Not atmospheric. They're structured." A distant vibration rolled through the ground. Low. Deep. Not a roar yet, but the promise of one. The dragon tried to move again. This time, it failed almost immediately. Its forelimb collapsed halfway through the motion, scraping stone uselessly. The massive body shuddered, not from impact, but from internal strain. Whatever strength it had was being spent just to remain in place. Elias felt it then, the shift in the air pressure. Something was coming. Fast. "Form up," he ordered sharply. Weapons rose instantly behind him, the squad snapping into defensive positions without hesitation. Years of training took over muscle memory, even if their minds were still struggling to process what they were seeing. The dragon lifted its head slightly. Its eye fixed on Elias again. Not pleading this time. Warning. "Hear me," it whispered. The words came out broken, forced through whatever damage was inside it. "They hear me." Elias frowned slightly. "They?" The dragon didn't answer. Instead, it tried to turn its head upward. But the motion stopped halfway. Like something invisible had locked it in place. And then, the sound arrived. Not from the sky. From everywhere. A roar. But not like the dragon's voice. Not like anything natural at all. It tore through the valley with mechanical precision, layered with harmonic distortion that made the air itself feel like it was vibrating apart. The sound wasn't just heard, it was imposed. The soldiers staggered instinctively. Novak dropped to one knee, gripping his helmet. "What the hell is that?" Elias forced himself to stay upright. The dragon reacted violently. Not with aggression. With terror. Its entire body recoiled, muscles locking as if it had just been struck by something only it could feel. The broken chest heaved, trying to force air into lungs that no longer seemed capable of cooperating. "Silence," it choked. A second roar followed immediately. Closer. Louder. The valley beyond the ridge lit up with faint, shifting illumination, cold, artificial light moving in coordinated patterns. Shapes emerged through the haze. Massive silhouettes. Not organic. Not alive in any natural sense. Machines. But not simple ones. These things moved with intent. With coordination. With purpose that felt disturbingly precise. Long, segmented forms hovered above the terrain, their surfaces glowing with structured lines of energy. Around them, smaller units flanked in formation, scanning, tracking. Hunting. Elias felt something cold settle in his chest. Those aren't animals, Novak said quietly. No, Elias agreed. The dragon tried to move again. Its body convulsed. A sound escaped it, raw, broken, deeper than language. It wasn't a roar this time either. It was pain. Real, uncontrolled pain. And beneath it, something else. A scream trying to form. The machines responded instantly. One of the larger units angled downward. A pulse of energy shot across the valley, not fire, not lightning, but something more precise. Focused. Surgical. The dragon spasmed violently as it struck. Its body slammed into the ground, carving deep furrows into the stone. Dust exploded upward in a violent wave. Elias stepped forward instinctively. Hold fire, he barked at his squad. Sir. Novak shouted. We don't even know what those things. I said hold fire. The valley shook again as another pulse struck the dragon. It screamed. This time, it wasn't broken language. It wasn't a word. It was a sound so massive, so raw, that it bent the air around it. A true roar, not of aggression, but of suffering pushed past its limits. The sound carried across the valley like a collapsing mountain. And for the first time in recorded history, a dragon screamed. The machines adjusted immediately. Synchronized movement. Response. Control. Elias understood then, with a clarity that felt like falling. They weren't killing it. They were managing it. Containing it. Suppressing it. The dragon's body shuddered again, weaker now. Its eye flicked toward Elias one last time. Not fear anymore. Not warning. Something closer to resignation. Now, you hear it, it whispered. And then. The machines closed in.